As we close our eyes and drift into this journey, we begin to realize that the story of Native American women is one of quiet strength, deep knowledge, and a connection to the land that ran like a river through every moment of their lives. Imagine a world without clocks or calendars, where time was measured by the seasons and the changing patterns of the stars above. Each sunrise was a call to action, a reminder that survival was never guaranteed, yet also a chance to honor the earth and all it provided. In this first part, we set the stage for the long and winding path of Native American women's history, a story not of warriors on horseback or dramatic battles, but of countless small tasks, daily labors, and endless adaptability that wove the fabric of entire communities. Native American tribes were far from uniform. There were hundreds of them, each with its own customs and beliefs, living in every corner of what we now call North America. In the icy forests of the north, women learned to weave warm clothing from animal hides and furs, while in the desert southwest, they found ways to coax food from dry, sun-baked soil. On the Great Plains, women carried the weight of their homes as they moved with the buffalo, packing and unpacking their lives with each change of the seasons. And in the lush Pacific Northwest, women paddled long canoes across misty waters, gathering fish and shellfish to feed their families. The diversity was staggering, but what tied them all together was a shared sense of duty and belonging. For Native American women, survival was not just about gathering food or tending fires, though these tasks were essential. It was about weaving themselves into the rhythms of their world, knowing when to plant and when to harvest, when to sing and when to mourn. Each task held meaning, and each breath was a prayer to the spirits of the land, the water, the sky. To be a Native American woman was to live with a kind of awareness that most of us have long forgotten, to see every plant as a potential medicine, every stone as a possible tool, every river as both a source of life and a path to elsewhere. It was to carry the weight of generations, to learn the songs of one's grandmother, and to teach them to the next daughter in line. This is a history that cannot be told through dates and battles alone, for it is a history of everyday moments, of fingers stained with berry juice in summer, of hands calloused from weaving baskets and grinding corn, of eyes that watched the horizon for signs of change, whether in the weather or in the approach of strangers. Why wouldn't you last a day as a Native American woman? Because it was not enough to be strong in body, though strength was needed in every sinew and bone. It was about a different kind of strength too, the patience to endure long hours of repetitive work, the courage to face each day's uncertainties without complaint, the humility to put the needs of the community above your own. Each dawn brought a new set of tasks: tending children, gathering wood, hauling water from a distant stream, shaping clay into pots that would hold the meals to come. In some tribes, women held spiritual power as well. They were healers, midwives, and keepers of stories, trusted to guide the sick back to health or the dying into the next world. Their days were never truly their own, for the needs of family and tribe always came first. And yet, there was joy to be found, too. In the laughter of children, the warmth of a fire on a cold night, the songs sung around a cooking fire that told of ancestors and the land itself. As we begin this journey through 12 parts, each about 10 minutes long, think of it as a gentle unfolding. We won't rush through these stories. We'll let them flow like the rivers that sustained the people we're talking about. slow, steady, and filled with small currents of detail that might seem unremarkable at first, but, when taken together, form something vast and enduring. Let your mind relax into the cadence of these words, each one a soft footstep on the path of history. This is not the kind of history that shouts or demands your attention. Instead, it is a history that whispers, that hums softly in the background, that invites you to let go of the day's concerns and sink into a deeper kind of remembering. And in that remembering, perhaps you will find not just a story of hardship and survival, but also a quiet sense of connection to the land, to the past, and to the spirit of resilience that still echoes in the lives of Native American women today. As we drift a little deeper into this journey, let your mind wander to the quiet hum of daily life that defined the world of Native American women. While each tribe had its own unique customs and traditions, there were common threads that tied together the fabric of a woman's role in her community. Daily life was a delicate dance of responsibilities, a rhythm that began with the soft glow of dawn and stretched long into the gathering dusk. Imagine the gentle sound of a wooden pestle grinding corn into flour, the patient hands weaving strips of bark into baskets that would one day carry berries or water, the rhythmic stroke of a bone awl as it pierced hide to make clothing warm enough for the coldest nights. For many Native American women, the home was a place of power and comfort, though it was far from restful. It was the center of life, and every chore was an act of devotion to family and to the land itself. In matrilineal tribes like the Iroquois, women owned the homes and decided how resources were shared, passing property and clan names down through generations of daughters. In other communities, the bonds of kinship were woven through marriage and shared labor, each woman's role a vital thread in the tapestry of survival. The daily tasks of Native American women required not only physical endurance, but a kind of quiet intelligence, a deep understanding of the land and its cycles. Food gathering was more than a chore. It was an art. In the spring, women would search for the tender shoots of new plants, using knowledge passed down from grandmothers and great-grandmothers about which roots could heal a fever and which berries would sustain a family through the long winter. In the summer, they planted gardens of corn, beans, and squash, the three sisters that grew together in harmony and nourished entire villages. In the fall, they harvested, drying corn kernels and stringing them into braids that would hang in their homes like bright necklaces of promise. In winter, they wove warm blankets and told stories by the flickering light of the fire, their voices weaving tales as intricate as any beadwork. Every season brought new demands, but also new opportunities for gratitude and reverence. Childcare was another of the many roles a woman carried, not just for her own children, but often for nieces and nephews, or even for orphaned children whose mothers had been lost. The safety of children was everyone's responsibility, and teaching them the ways of the tribe was woven into every moment. A mother might show her daughter how to braid sweetgrass for baskets, explaining in a low, patient voice how each blade was a prayer of thanks to the earth. A grandmother might sing a song about the moon and the stars, telling how the first woman was shaped from clay and how all women are her daughters. These lessons were gentle and constant, forming a thread of connection between the past and the future. In this way, knowledge was not locked in books or guarded behind walls. It was lived, breathed, and shared in the simple tasks of each day. Though each tribe had different customs, Many Native American women also played crucial roles in decision-making and spiritual life. In some communities, clan mothers chose the chiefs and held the power to remove them if they failed to lead with wisdom. In others, women acted as healers and dreamers, using their knowledge of the plants and the spirits to care for the sick and guide their people. Their wisdom was respected, not hidden, and their voices carried weight in councils and gatherings. This balance of work and respect was at the heart of daily life, creating a sense of belonging that reached far beyond the walls of any single home. But with this came an unending stream of labor, gathering firewood, sewing moccasins from tanned hide, carrying water in clay pots balanced carefully on hips and shoulders. Even sleep was often brief, broken by the cries of children or the needs of the fire. As we reflect on this daily life, let each detail become a soft brushstroke, painting a picture of a world where nothing was wasted and everything had purpose. There was no luxury of idleness, yet in the constant movement there was a profound sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that every small act was part of a larger whole. It is easy, perhaps, to think of this life as hard and unforgiving, but there was also beauty in its simplicity. In the soft patter of rain on a bark roof, in the warmth of a shared meal, in the steady heartbeat of a community that saw every woman's labor as sacred. So as you settle into sleep, imagine that gentle world unfolding, each woman's hands shaping the story of her people, each dawn a new chance to care for the land and for one another. In that world, every breath was part of a promise to endure, to nurture, and to remember. As we continue this quiet journey, let your thoughts drift to the skills that Native American women needed to thrive in a world shaped by the land and the seasons. In a world without grocery stores or electric stoves, survival meant more than just finding food. It meant understanding how every plant and animal could be used, how to read the signs of changing weather in the clouds or the flight of birds, and how to adapt to the needs of a family that depended on your knowledge and strength. Picture the calm patience of a woman kneeling beside a stream, her fingers testing the cool water before filling a clay pot that she shaped herself from river mud, each curve molded with care and purpose. Water was life, and knowing where to find it, even in the driest places, was the first of many lessons. Beyond water, food was a daily concern that required endless skill and creativity. Women learned to recognize the edible plants that grew in their homelands. Sweet berries hiding in the shade of tall pines. Roots that ran deep in the earth and had to be dug with pointed sticks. Nuts that fell in the autumn and could be stored through the long winter. In the plains, it was the knowledge of how to cut meat from a freshly hunted buffalo and dry it into thin, light strips that would last for months. In the forests, it was knowing how to use smoke to preserve fish, turning each catch into a small, savory miracle of survival. But it wasn't just about gathering food. It was about making it last. Native American women were masters of preservation, turning short harvests into stores of plenty. Corn kernels were dried and ground into meal. Beans were strung up to dry in the sun. Squash was sliced and laid in long, curling ribbons that would feed the family when the snow lay deep on the ground. Animal hides were scraped and tanned to become warm clothing or waterproof coverings, and sinew was twisted into thread to stitch together the pieces of life. In some places, women learned to build dome-shaped homes of willow and cattail, bending each pole into place with the grace of someone who understands that shelter is not just protection from the cold, but a place to dream and to rest. In the icy north, women learned to sew furs into parkas that turned away the biting winds, while in the southwest, they knew how to shape clay into cool, dark pots that kept water sweet in the heat of the desert. These skills were not taught in schools or written in books. They were learned by watching, by listening, by doing. A young girl might watch her mother's hands as they twisted sweetgrass into baskets, learning the rhythm of each turn and fold. A grandmother might sing a soft song as she pounded acorns into meal, the melody a map of steps that would live in the memory long after the song itself had faded. In this way, survival was a shared art, each woman's hands echoing the work of her ancestors, each small act a prayer of gratitude for what the earth had given. In the evenings, when the air grew still and the only sound was the soft sigh of the wind in the trees, these women would sit together and share what they knew, passing down the skills that would feed not just the body, but the spirit, too. Yet, even these countless skills were not enough on their own. Survival also meant understanding the way of the world, the signs of a coming storm in the shape of the clouds, the hidden language of animal tracks in the snow. It meant knowing how to calm a frightened child with a story or a song, how to treat a fever with the cool touch of a wet cloth, and the healing power of plants known only to those who listened to the land. It meant never taking more than was needed, and always giving thanks for what was received. In a world of constant change and quiet danger, this respect for balance and harmony was perhaps the most important skill of all. So as you settle deeper into this calm night, imagine the quiet strength of these women. Their steady hands, their patient eyes, their deep knowledge of the world around them. These were the skills that carried them through each day, that turned the ordinary into something sacred. And in the soft hush of this moment, let that same strength become a gentle current beneath your thoughts, reminding you that survival is not just about struggle, but about the quiet, enduring grace of those who know how to live in harmony with the earth and all its gifts. As we drift further into the quiet world of Native American women, let us pause for a moment to consider the challenges of the environment they faced each day. Challenges that would test anyone's resolve and adaptability. Picture a landscape that was both beautiful and harsh. A world where every step outside the safety of a lodge or wickiup was a step into an ever-changing mystery. In the forests of the Northeast, towering pines and oaks created a deep green cathedral, but winters came with biting cold, snow drifting in silent sheets that covered trails and hid the paths to food and shelter. In these lands, women learned to read the signs of an early frost in the color of the leaves and the quickening breath of the river, to know when to gather the last roots of the season before the earth turned hard as iron beneath their feet. In the Great Plains, the endless expanse of grass and sky could turn from gentle to deadly in a single afternoon, thunderstorms boiling up from the horizon like angry spirits and winds that could strip the bark from trees and drive buffalo into frenzied stampedes. Here, women had to secure every part of the lodge, to tie down the flaps of buffalo hides with careful knots that would hold against the fury of the wind, to shield children from the cold and gather what dry wood they could before the storm came. In the deserts of the Southwest, the sun itself was an unrelenting challenge. Days of scorching heat shimmered over the red earth, the ground itself cracking like old pottery in the midday sun. Water was a treasure more valuable than any metal or gem, and women learned the secret places where springs bubbled up from deep within the earth, hidden in canyons where the cool shade was a refuge from the unending blaze above. In the evenings, as the sun sank behind the mesas in a glory of gold and red, women would gather around small fires, sharing stories as they watched the stars come alive in the clear desert sky. But always with an eye on the next day's journey to find the water and the shade that would sustain them and their families. In the Northwest, where rain fell like a soft, constant drumbeat, the challenge was different, but no less demanding. Dampness crept into every woven mat and every layer of clothing, and women learned to keep fires burning in the heart of the lodge, to hang fish high above the smoke so they would keep through the long, wet months of winter. The forests there were a tangle of green and shadow, and women knew the trails that wound through cedar groves to secret berry patches, the places where mushrooms grew fat and tender in the damp loam. Yet, even in the face of these challenges, there was a kind of partnership with the land, a deep understanding that every hardship was also a lesson, a chance to grow closer to the earth that gave life and took it away in equal measure. Women knew how to watch the animals, how to see the signs of migration in the flight of geese or the restless stir of deer in the underbrush. They knew the feel of the air before a storm, the sudden hush that fell over the land like a warning. In every place, from the sun-bleached desert to the icy tundra, they adapted their skills and their spirits, shaping their lives to fit the contours of the land. It was not a life of constant fear, but one of constant attention, a vigilance that became second nature and allowed them to find beauty and sustenance even in the harshest places. The environment tested more than just physical strength. It tested the heart and mind, demanding patience and a quiet acceptance of things beyond control. When a hunting party failed to bring back meat, it was the women who found ways to stretch what little there was, to turn dried berries and roots into meals that kept children alive until the next hunt succeeded. When drought shriveled crops and rivers ran low, it was the women who sang songs of rain, who called on the spirits of the earth to bring the waters back. These were not just chores or customs. They were acts of faith and resilience, a testament to the quiet power of those who refused to give up even when the land itself seemed determined to test them. So as you let these thoughts wash over you, imagine the sound of the wind through pine trees, the whisper of dry grass underfoot, the cool splash of a hidden spring in the desert. Let these echoes of the earth become a gentle backdrop to your drifting thoughts, a reminder that the challenges of the environment were never just obstacles. They were part of a lifelong dance between survival and respect, hardship and hope. In this dance, Native American women found not just endurance, but grace, a grace that still lives in the memory of the land and the quiet strength of their descendants. As we drift further into this quiet story, let us explore the social structure and gender roles that shaped the lives of Native American women and defined their place in the rhythms of family and community. In this world, everything was interconnected. The earth and sky, the spirits and the people. And within this web of life, every person had a role that was vital and respected. For Native American women, those roles were never just about duty. They were about balance, weaving together the threads of life with care and purpose. In many tribes, social structure was rooted in kinship and clan, a complex tapestry of relationships that bound each person to the past and the future. Women were often the keepers of this tapestry, tending not only to their own children, but to the children of sisters and cousins, ensuring that no one was ever truly alone. In matrilineal societies like the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse, women were the heartbeat of the community, tracing descent and inheritance through the mother's line. Land and homes belonged to women, who held the power to decide who would lead and who would be guided, their voices carrying weight in councils and in the quiet decisions of daily life. Even in tribes where power was shared in other ways, there was a deep respect for the work and wisdom of women. Their tasks were many, but each was done with a sense of honor and belonging. From tending gardens and preparing food to crafting the tools and clothing that kept families warm and safe, these tasks were seen as sacred, woven into the fabric of spiritual and communal life. In the plains, women learned the art of setting up and taking down the teepee, each stake and hide placed with precision, creating homes that could withstand the bitter winds and blazing sun. In the forests, they gathered berries and herbs, their baskets heavy with the gifts of the earth, their songs rising softly as they worked. In the Southwest, they shaped clay into cool, dark pots, their fingers tracing ancient patterns that told stories of water and growth. These roles were not confined to the hearth alone. They were part of a larger system of balance and reciprocity, where the labor of women was seen as the very foundation of life. Spiritual life, too, was often the domain of women, who served as healers and midwives, dreamers and singers of songs. In many communities, women carried the knowledge of herbs and ceremonies, guiding the sick back to health and the living back to harmony with the world. Their words and songs held the power of medicine, the power to heal not just the body, but the spirit. In this way, women's roles stretched beyond the daily chores of survival, reaching into the heart of what it meant to live in balance with the earth and one another. Even in tribes where leadership was held by men, the wisdom of women shaped every decision, their voices a quiet but steady current beneath the surface of tribal life. The respect given to mothers and grandmothers was more than tradition. It was a recognition of the deep well of knowledge they carried, of the patience and care that nurtured not only children, but the very soul of the community. But these roles also carried a weight, a burden that was born with quiet dignity. In a world where every dawn brought new work, there was little room for rest or complaint. A woman might spend long hours bent over a grinding stone, her muscles aching from the slow rhythmic crush of corn or acorns into meal. She might rise in the dark of early morning to gather wood, her breath clouding in the cold air. The silence of the world around her, a constant reminder that survival was a communal effort, and she was an essential part of it. And yet, even in this endless cycle of labor, there was space for laughter and tenderness, for the songs sung softly as she worked, for the gentle hush of a baby at her breast, for the stories shared around a fire that flickered like a heartbeat in the night. In this delicate balance of gender roles and social structure, there was no strict division of power, no rigid walls to separate one world from the next. Rather, there was a sense of interdependence, of a shared journey in which every hand had its place and every voice was valued. Let that idea settle into your thoughts now, like the quiet lapping of water at the edge of a lake. Imagine the soft murmur of women's voices in council, the warm glow of a fire in the darkness, the steady beat of a drum that marked the rhythms of life. In this world, each woman's work was not only survival, but a song of belonging, a promise that the world would go on, and in that promise, a kind of peace that speaks softly even now, across the long years that lie between us. As we drift further along this quiet journey, let us pause to consider the world of health and medicine, a realm where Native American women held knowledge that was both ancient and alive, woven into every breath and every blade of grass. In a world without pharmacies or sterile hospitals, health was a matter of balance, a dance of the body and the spirit that required not just skill, but a deep understanding of the rhythms of the earth itself. Imagine a woman sitting cross-legged by a small fire, her fingers gently crushing leaves into a fragrant poultice, her voice a low murmur as she speaks to the spirit of the plant, thanking it for its healing gifts. In every region, the medicine women and healers knew the secrets of the land. In the forests of the Northeast, they gathered white willow bark to ease fever and pain. In the deserts of the Southwest, they coaxed water from aloe to soothe burns and injuries. In the northern plains, they plucked yarrow and sage to clean wounds and quiet infection. These were not casual remedies, but the result of generations of observation and reverence, each cure a thread in the larger tapestry of life. Healing was not just about treating illness, but about restoring harmony, a belief that the mind, body, and spirit were bound together, and that true health meant finding balance among them. A woman who fell ill might be treated with teas and poultices, yes, but also with songs and prayers, with rituals that called on the spirits of earth and sky to bring her back into alignment with the world around her. In the glow of a lodge fire, an elder woman might chant softly, her words flowing like water to wash away fear and doubt, her hands moving in gestures of comfort and hope. Even the act of gathering these medicines was a kind of prayer, a way of asking permission from the earth, of giving thanks for the gifts that sustained life. In this way, the practice of medicine was a bridge between the seen and the unseen, a gentle weaving of knowledge and faith that held communities together, even in the face of sickness and loss. Every tribe had its own ways of healing, its own sacred plants and stories. In the Northwest, women boiled cedar and spruce into steaming baths that chased away the chill of long, wet winters. In the plains, they burned sweetgrass and sage, letting the smoke rise like a prayer to cleanse both body and spirit. In the Southwest, they used clay and ash to draw out infection, their hands guided by the quiet songs of their mothers and grandmothers. This was not just medicine, but a way of seeing the world, a recognition that everything in nature had its place and its purpose, and that healing could be found in the smallest leaf or the gentlest breeze. And so, too, was the work of the midwives, those women who guided new life into the world with hands as steady as the earth itself. They knew how to ease the pain of childbirth with warm water and soothing herbs, how to wrap a newborn in soft hides that smelled of wood smoke and fresh air. They knew the ancient songs that welcomed a child's first cry, songs that carried the promise of a life woven into the land, and the people who would nurture it. In these quiet, sacred spaces, the work of women was a kind of magic, a reminder that life itself was a gift, and that each breath was a thread in the endless dance of creation. But there were times, too, when even the deepest knowledge could not ward off the shadows of sickness and death. Epidemics brought by settlers swept through villages like wildfire, taking mothers and children, elders and warriors alike. In those dark times, women turned to every skill they knew, every prayer and every plant, to hold back the tide of loss. And though many lives were claimed by these foreign diseases, the women's quiet resilience shone through, a determination to remember, to heal, and to keep the stories of their ancestors alive in the face of so much sorrow. So as you let this gentle narrative unfold in your mind, imagine the soft rustle of leaves in a medicine woman's hands, the scent of cedar smoke curling through the air, the quiet heartbeat of a song that carries hope and healing. In the world of health and medicine, Native American women were not just caregivers, but guardians of balance and harmony. A reminder that true healing is not just the mending of flesh, but the tending of spirit and the honoring of all that gives life. Let this thought become a soft echo in your dreams tonight, a promise that even in the darkest moments, there is always the gentle strength of those who know how to care for the body, the mind, and the soul. Let us now slip further into the quiet mystery of the night, to a place where the veil between the visible and the invisible grows thin, the realm of ceremonies and spiritual practices, where Native American women carried ancient traditions that echoed the heartbeat of the land itself. In a world alive with spirits, every dawn and every dusk was a chance to honor the forces that shaped existence, to give thanks for the breath in the lungs and the food in the belly, to remember that life was a gift woven from the threads of the seen and the unseen. In many tribes, it was the women who prepared the sacred spaces, who lit the fires that called the spirits near, who tended the songs and the prayers that stitched the world together in patterns of light and shadow. Imagine the soft flicker of a fire in the darkness, the gentle sway of cedar smoke rising to meet the stars, the hush that falls when voices join an ancient chant, a hush that feels like the world itself is listening. These ceremonies were as varied as the land, each one shaped by the needs and dreams of the people who lived beneath the endless sky. In the northeast woodlands, the women of the Haudenosaunee tended the sacred fires of the Longhouse, their songs rising in the warm glow of midwinter ceremonies that reminded the people of the cycles of renewal and gratitude. In the dry desert heat of the Southwest, women wove prayer feathers and placed them at the doorways of kivas, inviting the spirits of rain and growth to bless the earth with their gentle touch. In the northern plains, the beating of the drum was the heartbeat of the world itself, and women painted their faces with earth and ochre, their dances a prayer to the spirits of buffalo and sky. In every place, the ceremonies were a tapestry of light and sound, color and scent, woven from the knowledge that the world was alive and that every moment was an offering. For many Native American women, spiritual life was not separate from the daily tasks of survival. It was the breath that animated every step, every stirring of the pot, or stitching of a moccasin. When a woman gathered herbs in the early dawn, she spoke softly to the plants, asking their permission, and leaving an offering in gratitude for their gift. When she cooked the evening meal, she stirred not only food, but blessings into the pot. The slow swirl of the spoon, a quiet prayer for the health and harmony of her family. Even the weaving of baskets or the careful painting of pottery was a kind of ceremony, each line and shape carrying the memory of the land, the stories of the people who had walked it before. In this way, every act of daily life became a thread in the larger weaving of spirit and matter, a constant remembering that nothing was separate, that the sacred was everywhere. There were ceremonies for every turning of the year, for planting and harvest, for the first snowfall and the return of the geese in spring. There were songs that called the rains to nourish the cornfields, dances that honored the spirits of the hunt and the quiet spirits of the hearth. When a child was born, women gathered to sing songs of welcome, their voices carrying the promise of protection and belonging. When someone passed from this world to the next, women tended the morning fires, their songs a bridge to guide the spirit home. And in every ceremony, whether grand or humble, the presence of women was a quiet strength, a reminder that they were not only the givers of life, but also the keepers of the ways that sustained it. But the ceremonies were not only for times of joy. In times of sickness and loss, women's voices rose in songs of healing and comfort, their prayers a balm for hearts that ached in the darkness. They wove the memories of ancestors into the songs of the living, ensuring that even in sorrow, the circle of life remained unbroken. These practices were more than tradition. They were a way of seeing the world, a way of finding beauty and meaning, even in the face of hardship. They reminded the people that the earth was a living, breathing being, and that to live in balance with her was to honor the sacred in every stone, every river, every breath of wind. So as you let your mind wander now, drifting on the soft current of these thoughts, imagine the warm glow of a fire in the night, the hush of voices lifted in prayer, the gentle rhythm of a drum that echoes the beating of your own heart. In the world of ceremonies and spiritual practices, Native American women carried the songs of earth and sky, weaving them into the lives of their families and their communities. Let this quiet wisdom wrap around you like a soft blanket, a gentle reminder that in every moment there is a place for reverence, a place for peace, and a place for the spirit to rest. Let us now wander into the softly lit realm of storytelling, a world of memory and wonder that Native American women have carried in their hearts and voices since time immemorial. In this world, stories were not simply entertainment or idle chatter around a flickering fire. They were the lifeblood of a people, the threads that tied each generation to the next. Picture a grandmother seated in the warm glow of a fire, her voice a quiet melody that echoes the crackle of burning wood. In the hush of night, children gather close, their eyes wide with wonder as she begins her tale. Her words are more than words. They are the breath of the earth itself, carrying the wisdom of mountains and rivers, of the sun and the moon. Each story is a river of memory, flowing gently from the past to the present, reminding the listeners that they are part of something older and deeper than themselves. In many Native American cultures, storytelling was the sacred duty of the women who had watched over generations, their memories as rich and layered as the earth itself. These women were the keepers of creation stories that spoke of how the world came to be, of how the animals learned to walk the land and the rivers began to sing. Their voices carried tales of the trickster spirits who taught the people to laugh and to be wary of pride, of the heroes who faced the unknown with courage and brought back the gifts of the world. These stories were not written down in books or carved in stone. They lived in the breath of each teller, shaped by the warmth of the fire and the gentle hush of the night. And in every telling, they were reborn, fresh and alive, yet woven with the weight of ages. Storytelling was also a way of teaching, a quiet classroom without walls or books, where every tale held lessons for the heart and mind. In the stories of Coyote and Raven, children learned to be clever and to respect the ways of the world. In the songs of the grandmother spider, they learned that even the smallest voice could weave great things. Women knew that to tell a story was to plant a seed in the minds of those who listened, a seed that would grow and flower in its own time, carrying forward the wisdom of the ancestors. It was a way of teaching, not through command or demand, but through wonder, of letting each listener find their own path in the winding rivers of words. The act of telling these stories was itself a ceremony, a weaving of sound and silence that brought people together in a shared breath. As women spoke, the night seemed to lean in closer, the stars listening with the same wonder as the children at their feet. The rustle of pine needles or the soft sigh of wind outside the lodge became part of the story, a gentle backdrop to the rhythm of the teller's voice. There was no rush, no impatience in these moments. Each pause was a chance to let the words sink in, to let the heart catch the echoes of the past and feel the soft weight of tradition. In these stories, there was room for laughter and for tears, for the deep, abiding knowledge that life itself is a story unfolding with each dawn. Even in the chores of daily life, stories found their place. As women pounded corn or stitched moccasins, their voices wove tales that turned work into a kind of song, each word a heartbeat that made the labor lighter. They spoke of the spirits that danced in the smoke of the cooking fire, of the ancestors who watched over the children as they played in the dust outside. In this way, storytelling was not confined to the quiet hours of the night. It was the living breath of each day, a reminder that every act, no matter how small, was part of a larger story that stretched back to the beginning of time. So let this thought settle into your dreams tonight, that in every word and every story, there is a path back to the heart of the world. Native American women were the guardians of these paths, their voices weaving tapestries of memory that held the past and the future in a single breath. In the gentle murmur of a grandmother's voice, in the bright laughter of children gathered close, there lived the quiet strength of a people who knew that to tell a story was to honor all that came before and to carry it forward into the light of another day. Let us return now to that flickering glow of the fire, to the soft cadence of voices that seem to blend with the night itself, and continue to wander along the winding river of stories that Native American women have carried in their hearts. In this quiet weaving of memory, storytelling was not only a way to pass the time, but a way to understand the world and one's place within it. Women, as keepers of these stories, held a power that was both humble and profound, the power to shape how children saw themselves, how they learned to walk with care and gratitude upon the earth. With each story told, a woman offered not only entertainment, but a map for living, how to greet each dawn with reverence, how to honor the animals and the rivers, how to find strength in community and resilience in the face of hardship. These were lessons carried on the breath, soft as a feather, yet as strong as the roots of ancient trees, binding families and generations together in a shared knowing. For Native American women, storytelling was a way of remembering, of keeping alive the memories of those who had come before, and of ensuring that their wisdom was not lost to the shadows of time. When a grandmother spoke of the earth's creation or the first songs of the birds, she was not just telling a story, she was offering a gift of belonging, a reminder that every person was part of a sacred circle that stretched across generations and seasons. And so, even in times of change and uncertainty, these stories were a source of comfort, a quiet promise that no matter how the world shifted, the voices of the ancestors would always be there, whispering in the rustle of leaves and the sigh of the wind. In these tales, children learned to listen, not only with their ears, but with their hearts, to hear the gentle teachings that lay hidden in the laughter of coyote or the quiet wisdom of turtle. The women who told these stories understood that they were not merely repeating old words, but breathing life into them, shaping them to fit the moment and the needs of those who listened. In this way, each story was both old and new, as ancient as the stars, yet always alive, always growing. The teller's voice might shift with the seasons, her stories bending to the gentle urgings of memory and the quiet questions of children. Sometimes, she might pause to let a child's laughter fill the spaces between words, or to let the hush of night deepen the magic of the tale. In these pauses, there was space for wonder, for the small, secret knowledge that even in the telling, something sacred was being woven, something that would endure long after the fire had burned down to embers. As the years passed and the world around them changed, Native American women continued to hold fast to this gift of storytelling, even when outside forces tried to silence their voices. In the face of missionaries who spoke of new gods and new ways, in the shadow of schools that sought to erase language and memory, women kept the old stories alive in whispers and songs. They spoke in the quiet hours of night, in the soft spaces of work and rest, their words weaving a shield of memory around their children. And though the world shifted and changed, these stories remained, a testament to the strength of women who knew that even the smallest seed of memory could blossom into a garden of resilience. So as you listen now, let these stories become a gentle rhythm in your thoughts, a quiet echo of all those nights when voices rose and fell like the soft murmur of a river. In the world of Native American women, storytelling was more than an art. It was a living breath, a promise to the earth and to each other. It was a way of saying, we are still here, we remember, and we will carry these stories forward as long as there is breath in our bodies and warmth in our hearts. In this way, the role of storytelling was not just about preserving the past. It was about weaving the future, one word, one breath, one softly spoken tale at a time. Let this thought become the gentle murmur that rocks you to sleep, a lullaby of memory and belonging that stretches across the long years and lights the way home. Let us now wander into the quiet world of crafts and artistry, where Native American women wove beauty into every fold and seam. every bead and brushstroke. In this world, the act of creation was not just a task or a trade, but a sacred practice, a way of turning the simplest materials, the rough hide of a deer, the bright shimmer of a shell, the patient threads of sinew and fiber, into something that carried the breath of the earth itself. Picture a woman sitting in the soft glow of a morning fire, her hands moving with a practiced grace as she shapes a basket from river reeds, each careful bend and twist a testament to the quiet rhythm of her thoughts. The rustle of grass, the gentle sigh of wind, the warmth of the hearth. All these sounds become part of the weaving, each one a whisper of the land's own heartbeat. In this way, the crafts of Native American women were more than mere objects. They were living prayers, silent songs of gratitude and reverence for the gifts of the world. The artistry of these women was born from the land around them, shaped by the seasons and the spirits of the earth. In the icy north, women tanned and sewed caribou hides into soft, warm parkas, each stitch guided by knowledge passed down through generations. In the desert southwest, they shaped clay into vessels that held not only water, but the memory of rain itself, their hands smoothing the surface of the pot, as if to quiet the sigh of a distant thunderstorm. Along the coasts, women gathered shells and driftwood, weaving them into jewelry that shimmered like the ocean's own laughter. Each region, each landscape, lent its voice to these crafts, and the women who shaped them listened closely, letting the songs of rivers and forests guide their hands. The colors and patterns they created were not random or idle decoration, but language, a silent conversation that spoke of family, of belonging, of dreams. Beads stitched into moccasins told stories of journeys taken and blessings received. Quillwork traced the quiet prayers of a mother for her child's safe passage through the world. A basket's pattern might speak of the four directions, of the balance of life, of the cycles of growth and rest that shaped the world. In every line and color, there was meaning, a map of memory that held the wisdom of those who had come before. And in this patient, deliberate art, there was a kind of peace, a way of reminding oneself and the world that beauty could be found even in the smallest, humblest of things. As she worked, a woman might sing softly, her voice weaving through the quiet rustle of the reeds or the gentle tap of bone needle against hide. These songs were part of the craft, just as much as the threads or beads themselves. Songs that carried the memory of grandmothers who had sat in this same place, whose laughter still echoed in the patterns of each stitch. In this way, every piece of artistry was a thread in a much larger weaving, a reminder that she was not alone in her work, but part of a lineage that stretched back to the dawn of time. And though her hands shaped the baskets and blankets, her heart was shaping something even deeper, a connection to her ancestors, to the land, and to the quiet, enduring strength that flowed through her like a river. These crafts were not merely for show or for trade, though they often carried beauty and value far beyond the village fires. They were tools for life and for ceremony, for the daily tasks of gathering and storing, for the sacred moments of birth and marriage and passing on. A cradle board carved with careful symbols held not just a child, but the prayers of generations. A woven belt might carry the weight of an entire family's history, each color and twist a memory of love and loss and hope. In these pieces, The artistry of Native American women was a living testament to their resilience, their patience, and their deep reverence for the cycles of the world. So as you drift in thought, let this image settle in your mind. A woman sitting in the hush of morning, her hands moving with quiet purpose, her breath in rhythm with the soft songs of the land. In the world of crafts and artistry, Native American women wove more than objects. They wove life itself, each piece a gentle echo of the land's own music, each thread a promise that beauty and meaning can be found even in the simplest of tasks. Let this thought carry you forward, a gentle reminder that the quiet work of the hands is also the quiet work of the spirit, weaving together the old and the new, the seen and the unseen, in a pattern that will never truly fade. Let us now continue to trace the delicate paths of craftsmanship and artistry, where Native American women poured not only skill, but spirit into the objects that shaped their lives and their communities. Imagine the soft daylight filtering through a woven mat as a woman carefully selects tiny glass beads, each one catching the light like a drop of morning dew. Her fingers move slowly, threading the beads onto sinew with a patience born of generations, each tiny bead a note in a silent song that speaks of belonging, of identity, and of history. This beadwork was more than decoration. It was a language, a living record of family stories, clan symbols, and the deep connection between people and place. Patterns traced out in vibrant colors told stories that words could not capture, stories of journeys taken, battles fought, love given and lost, and the ever-turning cycles of nature. As the beads grew into shapes of flowers, stars, or animals, the woman's quiet breath seemed to weave itself into the design, infusing the work with a soul that could never be replicated by mere craft alone. Beyond beadwork, Native American women were masters of weaving, transforming humble fibers into strong, beautiful fabrics that clothed their families and held the warmth of their prayers. In the Southwest, women spun cotton and dyed it with natural pigments, deep reds from the cochineal insect, soft yellows from wild grasses, earthy browns from tree bark, creating blankets and garments that were not only practical, but also deeply symbolic. Each color was chosen with intention, each pattern a prayer for protection, health, or good fortune. The act of weaving was meditative, a slow and steady rhythm that allowed the mind to settle and the heart to remember its connection to the earth and ancestors. As the shuttle passed back and forth, it was as though the woman was weaving time itself, binding past and future in each line of thread. Carving was another realm where artistry blossomed under the careful hands of women. From the soft wood of the eastern forests to the sturdy buffalo horns of the plains, women carved tools, utensils, and ornaments that carried both beauty and meaning. A carved wooden bowl was not just a vessel for food. It was a container of stories and blessings, each curve and groove shaped by the spirit of the maker. In some tribes, women carved ceremonial objects, masks, rattles, or dance fans that held the power to call forth spirits and ancestors during sacred rituals. These objects were treated with reverence, passed down from mother to daughter, their surfaces worn smooth by the hands of many generations. In every careful stroke of the knife, there was a conversation between the woman and the material, a dialogue of respect that honored both the gift of the raw material and the gift of life itself. Pottery, too, was an art form held close by women. In the dry heat of the Southwest, women dug clay from the earth, mixing it with water and stone to create vessels that were both beautiful and useful. These pots held water, stored seeds, and carried food, but they also carried the voice of the artist. Painted with delicate geometric designs or images of animals and celestial bodies, each pot was a canvas of cultural expression. The firing of the pottery was a moment of transformation, the gentle heat of the fire turning soft clay into a lasting vessel, much like the way a woman's own experiences and wisdom shaped her family and community over time. The pots were often used in ceremonies, their shapes and colors tied to the sacred rhythms of planting, harvesting, and honoring the spirits. The artistry of Native American women was never just about individual creation. It was a communal act, a sharing of knowledge and love that connected families and villages in a web of care and support. Mothers taught daughters how to gather and prepare materials, how to listen to the land and the spirits that guided their hands. Elders shared stories of the meaning behind each pattern, the history behind each symbol. The making of crafts was a way to pass on identity, to teach the next generation not only how to survive, but how to live with beauty, respect, and purpose. It was a reminder that every stitch, every bead, every brush stroke was part of a larger story, a story of resilience, of continuity, and of the enduring power of the human spirit. As you settle deeper into the calm of night, imagine these women sitting in the quiet shade of trees or the warmth of their homes, their hands busy, but their minds serene. Feel the gentle pulse of creativity that flows from them, a river of patience and love that nourishes the soul of their people. Their crafts are more than objects. They are whispers of the past and promises of the future, delicate threads that bind the generations in a tapestry of life, spirit, and memory. Let this thought rest with you now, a soft lullaby that reminds you of the quiet strength and gentle beauty woven into every moment, every act, every breath. Let's gently step into the everyday rhythms of life for Native American women, where each day unfolded with a quiet purpose and a steady flow of tasks woven together like threads in a tapestry. Life was not marked by hurried schedules or loud demands, but by a deep, abiding connection to the land and to the needs of family and community. From the first light of dawn, a woman's day was filled with a gentle rhythm, a rhythm that balanced work, care, and the subtle art of sustaining life itself. Imagine the soft glow of morning as she rises, her breath mingling with the cool air, ready to greet the day with hands that have learned the wisdom of many seasons. One of the foremost duties was tending to the food, gathering, planting, harvesting, and preparing meals that nourished not just the body, but the spirit. Depending on the region, this work took many forms. In some communities, women cultivated the three sisters: corn, beans, and squash, plants that grew together in harmony, each supporting the other in a quiet dance of nature's design. The act of planting was sacred, done with care and intention, asking the earth for permission and thanking it for its generosity. As the seasons shifted, women tended the fields, pulled weeds, and watched over the crops with a patient eye, understanding that the land had its own rhythms and timing. Harvest time was a celebration of abundance, but also a time to work hard, to gather and store enough to sustain the family through the leaner months ahead. Gathering wild plants, roots, berries, and nuts was another vital responsibility, one that connected women deeply to the forest, the riverbanks, and the hills. With a basket woven from reeds or grasses, a woman would move through the landscape with practiced steps, her knowledge of the seasons and the plants guiding her. She knew which berries were ripe, which roots held the most nourishment, and which herbs could heal or soothe. This knowledge was passed down quietly, from mother to daughter, a precious inheritance of survival and care. Sometimes, the gathering was a solitary walk, a time for reflection and communion with the natural world. Other times, it was a shared activity, women walking and talking together, their laughter mingling with the songs of birds. Food preparation was itself an art and a science, a transformation of the gifts of the land into sustenance for the body and soul. Corn might be dried and ground into meal, then shaped into soft bread or hearty porridge. Meat, often hunted by men but prepared by women, was carefully cleaned, smoked, or dried to last through the seasons. Women knew how to preserve food, how to make it last, and stay wholesome in the absence of modern conveniences. The preparation of meals was often done over an open fire, where the warmth of the flames was both practical and comforting, a gathering point for family and friends. As the food cooked, stories might be shared, laughter exchanged, and the bonds of community quietly strengthened. But daily life was not only about food. Women also cared for the children, teaching them through gentle guidance and example. From an early age, children learned by watching and helping, their hands gradually learning the skills that would carry them through life. Mothers and grandmothers taught not only the practical tasks of gathering, cooking, and crafting, but also the stories, songs, and ceremonies that kept their people's spirit alive. Children learned the values of respect, patience, and connection, absorbing lessons that no book could contain. The home was a place of learning and love, where every task held meaning, and every moment was an opportunity to pass on wisdom. In addition to food and family, women often managed the household, building and maintaining shelters, making clothing from animal hides or woven fibers, and caring for tools and possessions. These tasks were done with a quiet diligence, each stitch and repair a thread in the fabric of life that kept the community strong and whole. Clothing, in particular, was a labor of love, sewn with care, and often decorated with meaningful patterns and symbols. The act of making clothes was also a way of honoring the animals that had given their lives to provide warmth and protection, a reminder of the interconnectedness of all beings. Through all these tasks, Native American women lived in close harmony with the cycles of nature. Their days were shaped by the rising and setting of the sun, the phases of the moon, and the changing seasons. There was a deep respect for the balance of life, a recognition that each action had consequences, and that care and gratitude were essential to sustaining the world. Even in the smallest tasks, there was a mindfulness that linked women to the earth and to the generations who had walked before them. So as you drift deeper into your thoughts, picture this quiet morning scene. A woman moving gently through her day, her hands busy but her heart steady, connected to the land, her family, and the deep rhythms that sustain all life. In her daily life and responsibilities, there was a quiet strength, a grace that comes from living with purpose and reverence. Let this image become a gentle current beneath your thoughts, carrying you softly toward rest and calm. Continuing our gentle journey into the daily life and responsibilities of Native American women, we find a world where care and community intertwine like the threads of a finely woven basket, each element essential to the strength and harmony of the whole. Beyond the essential work of food, gathering, preparation, and family care, women often took on the roles of healers, teachers, and leaders within their communities, roles that, while sometimes quiet and understated, carried deep influence and respect. Healing, in particular, was an art passed down through generations, a sacred knowledge held by women who understood the power of plants, rituals, and spiritual connection to mend both body and spirit. In many tribes, women served as herbalists and midwives, tending to the health and well-being of their people with a careful balance of practical skill and spiritual wisdom. They knew the properties of countless plants, which leaves could soothe a fever, which roots could ease pain, and which flowers could bring peace to a troubled mind. Gathering these medicinal herbs was a delicate task, done with reverence and care, often accompanied by quiet prayers to honor the spirits of the plants. This knowledge was not written down, but passed from woman to woman, woven into songs, stories, and daily practice. A midwife's hands brought new life into the world, guiding mothers through birth with calm confidence and gentle strength. These women were pillars of their communities, holding the threads of life, health, and tradition together in times of both joy and sorrow. Teaching, too, was a vital part of a woman's role, not just instructing children in practical skills, but nurturing their understanding of culture, values, and connection. Education was holistic, blending lessons about the land, the spirits, social responsibilities, and the arts. Stories and ceremonies were woven into daily life, a living curriculum that taught respect for all living things and the importance of balance. Women were often the keepers of language, preserving the words and sounds that carried their people's identity through lullabies, songs, and quiet instruction. They ensured that the knowledge of ancestors was never lost, even in the face of external pressures and upheaval. Within the community, women also took on leadership roles, though these varied among different tribes and regions. In some nations, women held significant political influence, choosing leaders, making decisions about land and resources, and shaping social norms. Their voices were essential in councils and gatherings, and their wisdom was sought in resolving conflicts and guiding the future. The respect accorded to women was rooted in their role as life-givers and caretakers of tradition, a recognition of the balance they maintained in the social fabric. Even in places where formal leadership was dominated by men, women exercised power through their influence in family and community life, shaping the hearts and minds of the people. Daily responsibilities also included the care of animals, whether domestic or wild. Women tended to dogs, which served as companions, protectors, and helpers. In agricultural communities, women cared for domesticated animals, ensuring their health and managing their needs. The relationship between women and animals was one of respect and reciprocity, acknowledging that all creatures were part of a shared world. This care extended to the natural environment as a whole. Women observed the land with attentive eyes, noting changes in weather, animal behavior, and plant growth, knowledge that was crucial for survival and planning. The making and maintaining of homes was another continuous task. depending on the tribe and environment. Women built and repaired dwellings, teepees, longhouses, adobe structures, or plank houses, using materials from the land and techniques passed down through generations. These homes were not merely shelters, but centers of family life, where stories were told, ceremonies held, and the pulse of community felt most strongly. Keeping the home warm, clean, and welcoming was a way of nurturing those within, a silent language of care that spoke volumes. Amid all these duties, Native American women found moments of rest and connection. Gatherings with other women for weaving, singing, and storytelling were times to share knowledge, offer support, and strengthen bonds. These moments were vital, replenishing the spirit and reaffirming identity. The cycles of nature, the phases of the moon, the changing seasons provided a framework for both work and celebration, reminding women that their labors were part of a larger, sacred rhythm. As the sun sets and shadows lengthen, envision the gentle closing of a day filled with such purpose and care. Picture a woman tending a small fire, her hands tired but steady, her heart full from the work of nurturing life and tradition. Her day may have been long, but it was marked by a quiet dignity and strength that sustains generations. Let this image become a soothing current beneath your thoughts, a reminder that even the most ordinary tasks can hold profound meaning when done with love and respect. In the daily life and responsibilities of Native American women, there's a timeless lesson that harmony comes from balance, from honoring the land and each other, and from living with intention and grace. As we continue our slow, gentle exploration, let's now turn our attention to the social roles and community influence of Native American women, a realm rich with nuance, respect, and quiet power. In many indigenous societies, women were far more than just caretakers or homemakers. They were the heart and foundation of their communities, wielding influence in ways that shaped the very fabric of social life. The roles women held were varied and deeply interconnected, spanning from family and clan responsibilities to political and spiritual leadership. These roles were often based on centuries-old traditions, and although they differed among tribes, a common thread was the profound respect accorded to women for their ability to nurture, lead, and sustain. Consider first the role of women as the keepers of kinship and clan systems. In many tribes, lineage and inheritance were traced through the mother's line, known as matrilineality. This meant that identity, property, and clan membership flowed from mother to child, making women the central figures in defining family and social connections. Because of this, women held great authority in determining social order and maintaining the balance of relationships within the tribe. They were often responsible for deciding marriages, raising children, and ensuring that the values and laws of the community were upheld through family ties. This matrilineal structure reinforced the idea that women were the living vessels of culture, history, and belonging. Within the home and extended family, women's influence was subtle but pervasive. They managed daily life, cared for children, and guided the upbringing of the next generation. But beyond these visible tasks lay a deeper power, the power of counsel and mediation. Women often acted as peacemakers, resolving disputes within families or between clans, using wisdom and empathy to restore harmony. Their voices were respected in communal discussions, and their advice was sought not only by family members, but by leaders and elders. In many cases, women's roles as nurturers translated into roles as social anchors, binding people together through kindness, understanding, and quiet strength. Turning outward, Native American women also played significant roles in political and ceremonial life. While political structures varied widely among tribes, many included women as key advisors or decision-makers. In some nations, women held formal positions of leadership. They might nominate or depose chiefs, participate in councils, or serve as clan mothers with authority to guide communal decisions. Clan mothers, in particular, were pivotal figures, respected for their knowledge, judgment, and spiritual insight. They embodied the link between the physical and spiritual worlds and were entrusted with safeguarding the welfare of their people. Their role required a balance of firmness and compassion as they navigated complex social dynamics and helped ensure justice and equity. Ceremonial life was another sphere where women's influence was profound. Many ceremonies, from rites of passage to seasonal festivals, depended on women's participation and leadership. Women might prepare sacred objects, lead songs and dances, or perform rituals that honored ancestors and spirits. Their roles and ceremonies were often seen as vital to maintaining the spiritual health of the community. This spiritual authority was a source of deep respect and reinforced the idea that women were not only caregivers of the body, but also custodians of the soul. Their connection to the cycles of nature, the moon, the earth, the planting and harvesting seasons, was reflected in their ceremonial roles, which often emphasized renewal, fertility, and balance. Even in daily social interactions, the influence of women was evident. They maintained social networks that extended beyond the household, connecting families and clans through friendships, alliances, and exchanges. These networks were the lifeblood of community cohesion, enabling cooperation, support, and resilience. Women's gatherings for crafts, storytelling, and healing were occasions for sharing not only skills and knowledge, but also emotional support and collective memory. Through these social bonds, women reinforced cultural identity and ensured the transmission of traditions and values. It is important to remember that these roles and influences were not static or confined to the past. They evolved with the changing realities of Native American life. Women adapted to new challenges and opportunities, whether facing the disruptions of colonization, forced relocations, or the pressures of modern society. Their resilience and creativity ensured that the core of indigenous culture survived and thrived, often with women at the forefront of renewal and resistance. As you let these reflections settle, imagine the calm presence of a woman sitting among her people, her voice quiet but steady, her influence woven into the very fabric of the community. She carries the weight of generations, the wisdom of ancestors, and the hopes for the future. A gentle but unyielding force that sustains life and culture. In this social world, Native American women were not just participants, but pillars, their roles vital to the balance and health of their people. Let this image rest with you now, a soft echo of strength, care, and enduring connection, guiding your thoughts toward a place of quiet understanding and peace. Continuing to explore the profound social roles and community influence of Native American women, we find ourselves immersed in a world where leadership, spirituality, and social bonds are delicately intertwined, each supporting the other with quiet strength. In many tribes, the role of women extended far beyond the family hearth, reaching into the realms of governance, spiritual guidance, and cultural preservation. These roles, though sometimes less visible to outsiders, were the backbone of the social structure and essential to the survival and flourishing of their peoples. In political life, for example, many Native American societies valued women as essential advisors and power brokers. Women's voices were considered vital in selecting and guiding leaders, especially chiefs, whose authority depended not only on strength, but also on wisdom and justice. The ability to counsel and influence decisions was often based on women's deep understanding of social dynamics and long-term consequences, a perspective rooted in their roles as nurturers and caretakers. In some nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, clan mothers held the formal power to appoint and remove chiefs, a role that underscored their authority and responsibility. These women, entrusted with the welfare of their clans, combined political savvy with spiritual insight, embodying a form of leadership that balanced power with compassion. This balance of authority and empathy is also seen in women's roles in conflict resolution and peacemaking. Across many tribes, women were the mediators who soothed tensions, reconciled disputes, and restored harmony within families and communities. Their role was not passive, but active and intentional, requiring patience, negotiation skills, and a deep commitment to the well-being of all. By addressing conflicts with empathy and wisdom, women helped maintain the social fabric and ensured that relationships could heal and grow stronger. This peacemaking was an essential function, especially in societies where community cohesion was critical for survival and prosperity. Women's influence also extended into spiritual and ceremonial leadership, where they were often the keepers of sacred knowledge and rituals. The spiritual world was deeply connected to daily life, and women's roles in ceremonies were seen as vital for the health and balance of the community. They prepared and cared for sacred objects, led prayers and dances, and guided rituals that marked important life events, births, marriages, deaths, as well as seasonal cycles. Their participation ensured the continuity of traditions and the presence of spiritual protection. This spiritual authority was a source of respect and reverence, highlighting women's role as mediators between the earthly and the divine. In many tribes, the connection between women and fertility was central to their spiritual roles. They were often associated with the earth itself, embodying its creative and nurturing powers. Ceremonies honoring fertility, planting, and harvest frequently placed women at the center, celebrating their role in sustaining life. This connection reinforced the sacredness of women's bodies and their deep relationship to nature's cycles. Such spiritual beliefs helped sustain the community's respect for women and underscored their essential place in both physical and metaphysical realms. The social influence of Native American women was also woven through their roles as cultural bearers and educators. Beyond the home, women maintained language, stories, songs, and customs that defined their people's identity. Through storytelling, for example, women transmitted history, morals, and cosmology, lessons that shaped individual character and communal values. Their voices echoed through generations, preserving the wisdom of ancestors and inspiring resilience in changing times. This cultural transmission was crucial, especially during periods of upheaval and colonization, when indigenous ways of life were threatened. Women's dedication to preserving culture was a form of resistance, ensuring that despite hardships, their people's spirit would endure. Women's gatherings, whether for crafting, healing, or ceremonial purposes, also served as powerful social networks. These gatherings were spaces for sharing not only skills and knowledge, but also emotional support and collective memory. Through communal work and ritual, women reinforced bonds of kinship and friendship, creating a web of support that strengthened the community's fabric. These networks allowed women to organize, advocate, and sustain each other, forming a foundation for social resilience. As we reflect on these layers of social roles and community influence, it becomes clear that Native American women held multifaceted positions that combined leadership, care, spirituality, and culture. Their contributions were not always recorded in written history, but they were no less vital. The social world they shaped was one of balance, between strength and gentleness, authority and humility, individual and community. This balance allowed indigenous societies to thrive, nurturing generations through a deep understanding of connection and respect. Picture now a woman seated in a circle of her people, her presence steady and grounding. She listens and speaks with a calm authority, guiding her community not by force, but by the quiet power of wisdom and care. Her role, though sometimes unseen by outsiders, is the pulse of social life, the heartbeat that sustains and unites. As you rest with this image, let it bring a sense of peace and appreciation for the enduring strength found in connection, tradition, and the graceful leadership of women who carry their people forward with unwavering love. As we near the close of our slow, thoughtful journey through the lives of Native American women, it is fitting to turn gently toward the challenges they faced. Challenges that tested their strength, resilience, and spirit, yet also revealed the depth of their endurance and courage. History, as we know it, has not always been kind or fair, and Native American women bore a unique and heavy burden during centuries of upheaval and change. These challenges were not just physical or economic, but also cultural, emotional, and spiritual, touching every aspect of their lives. Yet within this struggle lies a story of remarkable resilience, a quiet, steadfast resistance that sustained their peoples and traditions through the darkest times. The arrival of European colonizers brought with it profound disruptions. For Native American women, the consequences were especially complex and painful. Colonization often meant the loss of land, displacement from ancestral territories, and exposure to new diseases that devastated populations. The very foundation of indigenous societies, their connection to the land, their social structures and cultural practices, was shaken. Women, as the bearers of culture and life, found themselves navigating an uncertain world where old ways were challenged and survival required adaptation. One of the most profound impacts was the imposition of foreign gender roles and social norms. European settlers brought patriarchal structures that clashed sharply with many indigenous societies, where women held significant authority and respect. This cultural imposition often sought to diminish women's roles and control, marginalizing their voices in political, social, and spiritual spheres. The result was a disruption not only of women's status, but of entire community dynamics, creating tensions and losses that echoed through generations. Women had to find ways to protect their identities and assert their importance despite these pressures. Forced removal and relocation further compounded the hardships. Events like the Trail of Tears forced many tribes to leave their homelands, uprooting families and severing the intimate ties between people and their sacred landscapes. For women, this journey was especially arduous. They had to care for children, the elderly, and the wounded while coping with hunger, exposure, and uncertainty. The physical toll was immense, but so was the emotional pain of losing a home, a place tied to ancestors, memories, and identity. Yet even in these forced marches, women's resilience shone. They supported each other, maintained cultural practices in small, secret ways, and kept the spirit of their people alive. The introduction of boarding schools was another profound challenge, one aimed directly at erasing indigenous cultures and identities. Native American children, especially girls, were taken from their families and placed in institutions designed to civilize them by suppressing their languages, traditions, and beliefs. For mothers and grandmothers, this separation was heart-wrenching. The schools sought to sever the transmission of culture through generations, but women fought back in countless ways. They held on to stories, taught children in secret, and nurtured resilience through love and quiet resistance. The scars left by this experience are deep, yet so too is the determination to reclaim and revive culture. Despite these overwhelming challenges, Native American women exhibited extraordinary strength. They adapted their roles, balancing survival with cultural preservation. In some cases, women became leaders of resistance, organizing communities and advocating for rights. Their knowledge of the land, their skills, and their wisdom were crucial as tribes faced new realities. Women's networks and social bonds provided emotional support and practical help, weaving a safety net in times of crisis. Spiritual resilience was equally vital. Women maintained ceremonies, prayers, and rituals that reaffirmed identity and connection to ancestors and the earth. These spiritual practices were acts of defiance and hope, sustaining the community's heart even when the outer world sought to destroy it. Through storytelling, art, and song, women preserved memory and identity, passing on the light of culture to future generations. As you reflect on this difficult chapter, imagine the quiet strength of women walking through the wilderness with children on their backs, tending small fires, or whispering prayers beneath the stars. Their bodies may have been tired, but their spirits remained unbroken, a testament to endurance and hope. Let this image bring a calm recognition of the resilience that has carried Native American women and their communities through centuries of hardship, a resilience rooted in love, courage, and an unyielding connection to life itself. Continuing our gentle exploration of the challenges faced by Native American women, we now turn to the ongoing resilience that has defined their lives across generations. While history is often marked by loss and hardship, it is equally a story of adaptation, creativity, and enduring strength. Native American women have continually found ways to protect their communities, nurture culture, and assert their dignity, even when faced with systemic efforts to erase their identities. In the face of forced assimilation and cultural suppression, many women became the keepers of tradition, preserving languages, stories, and ceremonies in the quiet corners of their homes and communities. These acts of cultural preservation were subtle, yet powerful forms of resistance. Language, for example, was more than communication. It was a vessel for worldview, history, and identity. women taught children their ancestral tongues in whispers, in lullabies, and in moments away from prying eyes, ensuring that the pulse of their heritage continued to beat. Songs and stories carried lessons about survival, morality, and connection to the land, offering comfort and guidance amid uncertainty. Economic challenges also pressed heavily on Native American women, especially as traditional ways of life were disrupted by colonization and later policies. Many adapted by embracing new forms of labor and entrepreneurship while maintaining cultural practices. Women became skilled artisans, creating beadwork, pottery, weaving, and other crafts that reflected tribal identity and provided economic support. These crafts were not only sources of income, but also vehicles for storytelling and cultural expression. The making of regalia, for instance, was a sacred art, connecting the maker to ancestors and the spirit world. Through such work, women asserted their agency and resilience, turning creativity into survival. Political activism became another vital area where Native American women exerted their strength and leadership. Throughout history and into the modern era, women have been at the forefront of movements advocating for indigenous rights, sovereignty, and justice. Their activism often arose from a deep sense of responsibility toward their communities and future generations. From organizing protests to engaging in legal battles and cultural revitalization efforts, Native American women have been crucial voices demanding recognition and respect. Their leadership reflects a tradition of balancing, nurturing with assertiveness, care with courage. The health and well-being of their communities also remained central concerns. Native American women often served as caregivers and advocates for better health care, education, and social services, addressing disparities caused by historical marginalization. They have worked tirelessly to combat the effects of trauma, poverty, and systemic neglect, creating support networks and programs that honor traditional healing alongside modern medicine. This holistic approach underscores the enduring connection between body, mind, and spirit, and the recognition that healing must be rooted in cultural identity and community strength. Despite the many challenges, Native American women continue to inspire with their resilience and vision. Their stories are not just of survival, but of renewal, of reclaiming languages, ceremonies, lands, and rights. They nurture their cultures in ways both grand and quiet, ensuring that the legacies of their ancestors live on in the hearts and minds of new generations. This resilience is a testament to the deep wells of strength that arise from connection to land, family, and tradition. As you let these reflections settle, picture a woman tending to a sacred fire, her hands steady as she breathes prayers into the smoke. Around her, the voices of ancestors whisper encouragement, and the earth beneath her feet holds the memories of countless generations. She is both a guardian and a beacon, embodying the past, present, and future of her people. Let this image fill you with calm appreciation for the enduring spirit of Native American women, whose resilience lights a path through history's challenges toward hope and renewal.